First card, new scoring system on DraftKings. Got to update the algorithm. Figure out what's up with new stuff. So I've talked about before how I simulate out the fight basically. I model what's going to happen, and now I just have to update the scoring for it. First thing that I had to do was pretty interesting was the quick win bonus, the 25 points you get for winning in the first minute. Before I was just doing a pretty naive, simple, assume a uniform distribution from 0 minutes to 5 minutes of any finish within the round. But I don't think I can do that anymore because the actual time that you win matters a lot now. If it's in that first minute, it's a lot more valuable than if it's in the third minute, and that difference is pretty important. So I had to figure out what's the best distribution for this. I pulled all the fights from the last 3 years, and anyone that ended in the first round, I recorded how long it took. There's a few hundred of them, but here's the list of them. And so I just assume any fight that ends in the first round, just randomly choose one of those past times, assuming that the past is predictive on this. And if it's less than a minute, give the 25-point bonus. So that's right here. Make this bigger. It's right here. The next thing I had to do was the striking points. So in the past it was 0.5 per sig strike. Now it's 0.2 per strike and 0.2 for significant strike. I raised the amount of variance because right now you have to add the strikes and significant strikes, multiply by 2, 0.2 for each. So before it was centered at 0 with a standard dev of 2. Now I just doubled the standard dev, made it a little higher. And I'm doing separating strikes and significant strikes. And I'm doing that based on previous significant strike rates and the significant strike rates are separate. So you get guys who are wrestlers like Grundy here. He's more of a wrestling guy. See, there's a 0.3 difference, which is actually pretty noticeable, like 10% of his strikes. It's a difference when he's significant or non-significant. You can see that in a couple other guys, but he's one of the good examples. So I did that. Now I had to consider what to do with the advances versus control time thing. And from my numbers and analysis, it didn't look like control time was actually going to be a very meaningful number. I mean, you get 1.8 per minute, and the amount of control you get, like even if you control the entire fight, it's only if less than 10 points, pretty likely. And if you do that, it's a very lopsided fight anyways, and the other changes in scoring are going to vastly outweigh whatever happens here. There are no advances, but I decided let's just estimate about 6 points still. It's for a takedown and likely control time, because if you're going to take someone down, you're probably either clenching control against the cage to get them down, or you get a good takedown and stay on top for at least a few seconds. That's a rough estimate. Some wrestlers are definitely going to outperform that. Some other guys are probably not. If you just dump a guy and then get back up, you're not going to get that. But that's just a rough estimate there. And so I want to take a look at how this affects this upcoming card. So this is run without the new updates, so the old scoring. And this is the new scoring. And where I wanted to show the biggest difference is, there's not actually that big of a change of what the algorithm wants to do. Here are some examples. These are women strikers with very low finish rate. And they are going to rely entirely on the decision points, but also the striking points. That's what they do. They're not getting knockouts, so they're not worried about getting those early finish bonuses. And what I want to say is overall, this incredibly values the finish bonuses a lot more because striking points are significantly reduced from 0.5 per significant strike to 0.4 per significant strike and then 0.2 for a non-significant strike. When nearly all of your strikes are significant, that's a 20% reduction in your points. That's a big deal. It was in the past where your striking could keep up with the finish bonuses. If you keep going in the fight, you could put up enough strikes to make up for the 20 points in the first round, 25 in the second. You could make up those points. Now it's just not going to happen nearly as much, especially without other scoring like takedowns. So, new system, when striking is reduced, I get 1% and 7%, it's roughly 8% on these women's MMA fighters who are not going to get finish points. And in the past, I was up at 17%. So I'm cutting my exposure in half. And if you look, where does it go? It ends up going to guys like Joaquin Buckley. He picks up a little bit, I think. And Phil Paz. I think he gets the most. Yeah, 46 to 51. He has a very high likelihood of finishing. You look down here, it's one of the highest finish rates on the card. Win by finish is 51%, is more likely than not. So people who are going to finish now are even much more likely to be in the optimal lineups based on how well they score without using strikes.